sixth issue of our DigiConnect series. All this we have started seeing this COVID pandemic when it is difficult for us to meet in some conferences or physically we should conduct some programs. So it is better to change our work style and better connect ourselves through this virtual media. So we are fortunate enough to have Dr. Shanbag with us today, and his topic will be COVID-19 pandemic, whether it is a bane or a boon for occupational physicians, because many of us, they are taking this as an opportunity to showcase or showcase their worth in their respective organizations. Now, Dr. Shanbag needs no introduction, but still I would like to introduce him. Dr. Srinivas Shanbag is a medical graduate from the Grant Medical College, Mumbai, and has diploma in industrial medicine from the College of Physicians and Surgeons, Mumbai. After working as a lecturer at Grant Medical College, he worked with ESIS hospitals in Mumbai and later joined Bharat Petroleum Limited at their Mumbai refinery, where he headed the medical services from 1982 to 1994. He joined Reliance Industries Limited as corporate medical advisor and has worked with them for 21 years. Besides being responsible for healthcare activities at Reliance, he was also in charge of occupational services for the group. He is presently working as President Medical Services in the expert group, advising the chairman for the last more than 3 years. He is on the board of directors of Reliance Hospital Management Services Private Limited and was actively involved in implementing the Dhirubhai Ambani Hospital project in Raigad, Maharashtra, as well as worked with Shri HN Hospital project. He's a trustee of the Dahej Health and Welfare Center, Gujarat. Dr. Shanbag has presented many scientific papers on various topics in the field of occupational health at national and international conferences in India and abroad. He has been awarded the Modi Stone Award for the best scientific paper. He has also delivered the ADM oration and the LNT oration of the Indian Association of Occupational Health in 2001 and 2004 respectively. Dr. Shanbag has been confirmed the honorary fellowship of Faculty of Occupational Medicine by Royal College of Physicians, London. He has also been awarded the President's Medal for American Industrial Hygienists Association. He is a member of various medical associations. He has been co-opted as a member of the board of the International Commission on Occupational Health. For 2015 to 18, he also serves as Medicam board member. He has also occupied various office bearer positions in Indian Association of Occupational Health at local and national levels, and has been the past president of Indian Association of Occupational Health and past vice president of Asian Association of Occupational Health and a past board member of ICO. So he has a vast experience to address this particular topic, and sir, in our lifetime as occupational health physicians, we have not seen such a crisis of this magnitude, and how our occupational services, they need to prepare for something like this COVID-19 pandemic, and keeping the safe and healthy workplaces is important at any time, but even more so in the times like this. So, dear friends, we have Dr. Shanbag with us. So he will address our queries. I request you all to put your questions or whatever queries you have in the meantime on the chat box. So we'll take your questions one by one after his address. So Dr. Shanbag, sir.
First of all, good evening, everybody. I would like to place on record my thanks to AEOHD, the IOH Delhi branch, especially Sandeep and Gajendra Kumarji, for having invited me today for this webinar or the virtual meeting, which they have started for the series which they have started, and they have have done this. This is probably the 6th or 7th meeting which they are held.
Good evening, everyone.
I must compliment the IOH Delhi branch for having started this and keeping us all up to date with in the latest crisis of this thing, of the pandemic. I remember whenever we had these in-person conferences, the first thing that we would do is, tell everybody to switch off their mobile phones or put them on silent mode. But the pandemic has changed it all. My request to all of you is to be muted during this time for two specific reasons. One is for your personal privacy, because whatever is happening in your surroundings can be heard by everybody, whenever your mic is on. So please unmute your mic only when you want to speak. That is number one. And secondly, it disturbs everybody if you keep your mic on. So this is the new sort of instruction for the virtual meetings, and we should be probably doing this all the time. So Corona has changed even the way of giving instructions in the beginning. So let me share my screen now and probably give you a short presentation. Sandeep, you have disabled my screen sharing. I can't share the screen.
Sandeep is disabled for everyone. We can't see the screen.
Sandeep is on a call. I don't think he can hear.
Now, of course, it is. I think it is. It has been enabled now. Yeah. See the screen now?
Not yet.
It says you are sharing the screen now.
No. Yeah, now, yeah. Now,
Okay.
yes.
Yes. We can see the screen.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Chandraji.
I hope every member has. I hope every member is now connected, and thanks to everyone, and especially AUHD. Dr. Sandeep.
Yeah, good. So let me start my presentation.
Okay.
Okay. So in these times of the COVID pandemic, whether we should get overwhelmed by this COVID pandemic or whether we should take it as a boon for us to really look at what we want to do. So as I said, the COVID pandemic has changed everything which we do in the last 2 months. One thing that has happened is the COVID has taught us that nothing is important in life. Everything can wait. Everybody is at home, locked up, and nobody can say, I'm very busy, I cannot come, I will not do this, I will not answer your phone. So it has taught us that nothing is so important that we can do that. So, I have always been hearing in my career of about 30, 35, 40 years nearly, occupational health physicians, doctors working in industry always have this anxiety that they don't get the importance they deserve. They always keep on asking us if the association to take it up with the government to ensure that the job is protected. Many people have commented, I am a doctor, I have to see patients. How can I do all this administration? How can I do all these things? This is not my job. Even recently in one of the chats on the WhatsApp, I have read somebody saying that I am missing seeing my patients and I can't do anything else. So my clinical practice is me. So there are a lot of these negative things which keep on happening. Though it has changed over the years, but still there is a lot of uncertainty and anxiety in a lot of occupational health physicians, which happens all the time. So what has changed in the Corona pandemic? So now we don't have social or religious gatherings. There is reduction in traveling. The meetings are virtual, as Sandeep said. Everything happens on video conferencing. There is distancing, working from home, no socializing, no partying. Even sports have started in an empty stadium. And so on and so forth. We'll keep on learning as to what the Corona pandemic is doing for us. So this change, so what are the threats to our discipline? So there is an uncertainty. We don't know what is going to happen next, what call I'm going to get next, who is going to call me, what is the demand going to be. We don't know. What suppose suddenly many people test positive, where I'm going to arrange for beds, how am I going to do this. So there's a huge amount of uncertainty and anxiety in the occupational health physician. The second thing is there is a fear of contracting the disease. There will be fear of contracting all the time. But remember one thing, when we chose the profession of medicine, this occupational hazard came with that. Not only during Corona times, there is a fear of contracting disease when we treat patients. So it is a part of our occupation that we have taken the risk of contracting diseases. So don't get, you have to take all the precautions, all the PPEs, everything has to be done, but there should be no fear of contracting the disease. There is a challenge in motivating the subordinates, especially in the times of this virtual thing, getting people to do work, getting people to come to office sometimes if there is a need for him to come to office. So there is a huge amount of challenge to handle your subordinates. There is a fear of not being able to meet the challenges and the demands of the situation. If the chairman calls you and says, I want this, there's a huge amount of fear that I will not be able to probably do what he asked for. Of course, there's fear of losing the job, fear of losing face. People feel that, people feel their ego is hurt if they cannot, stand up to certain amount of demands which the company makes. There is an apprehension of being accused of negligence by the employees, by the employers, and even by the government. Today the government has said that all people working in Mumbai should report and give their concurrence for working for the government, because if they don't, then they'll be probably jailed. So these sort of things are happening, and there's a huge amount of threats which are there. The other thing which happens is, if you are not up to the mark, please understand there are a lot of non-medical executives in the company today. They don't have other work, and they will usurp your medical field. They will usurp your medical field, and they will take over your job, because there is a huge amount of information overload on the internet. People can get information, people can get a lot of things, and people can, sort of present their findings or present your job to the management much more frequently and much more easier. So, there is always a fear of people trying to usurp your authority as a medical expert. So, huge amount of problems are going to be faced by the occupational health physician. So these are the few threats which I thought I will just enumerate over here. So what has the pandemic done? According to me, the COVID-19 pandemic has brought the discipline of occupational health into the limelight. Until now, the occupational health department has always in the background is a service function. They do not have that much importance. They do not have, if the first thing that happens when you want to reduce your expenses, the canteen goes, the occupational health services goes. Why don't you get doctors on contract? Why don't you get the whole medical services on contract? I have heard a lot of times in my career. So this particular pandemic has brought us into the limelight, and we should take it as an adrenaline shot to us to see that our career gets boosted. We should try to come out much more stronger out of this and say, okay, we are up to it, and we will be probably making a mark in the industry where we are working. So this is where we need to use this as an opportunity for ourselves to create a mark for ourselves. So what are the opportunities? We have plenty of opportunities now. The first of all is making a positive impression on the management. We can do a lot of things which the management expects us to do, and we can probably create that impression. You can create a goodwill among the employees. How do you create goodwill? Today is the time when there is a lot of anxiety amongst employees, whether it is non-COVID illnesses, or whether it is COVID itself when somebody is tested positive, or even otherwise when somebody else has tested positive. How can you create, how can you help them? They might call you up. How can you help them? How can you sort of give them all the comfort levels into treating their relatives or themselves? There's a huge amount of opportunity to create a goodwill amongst the employees. You can create a lot of network with the authorities. Today is the time when the authorities also need you as an industry, they will approach you and say, why doesn't your company provide us an ambulance, or why doesn't your company give me this, or company gives me that? There's a huge amount of opportunity to create that network with the authorities, which probably will be useful to you when in future when you need the government and authorities for your company. So there is an opportunity to do that, and we should exploit that opportunity. There is a big amount of opportunity to create a goodwill within the community. Whether you want to help the community in terms of medical services, whether it is for helping them with other things like food or rations or whatever reasons, you can be a part of the management team to do that. You will get an opportunity to be recognized as a competent professional by doing all these things. You can prove your administrative skills by utilizing this time to see to it that you achieve whatever your company has started to achieve. You can establish a leadership in the OH department. People will look up to you once you establish yourself. In the professional circles also, you will get recognized, and hence you will be looked upon to for advice. You will be looked upon to say how somebody else might ask your help to see how he can conduct himself in his own organization. And this is the time to take the right step towards growth and success in your own career. So you have to understand that these opportunities are available to you, and we should be able to take up this opportunity and see to it that we achieve whatever we want to achieve and enhance our career goals. For doing that, what do you require? You require knowledge about the disease, about the progress of the pandemic, about external factors in the community like the effect on the company, about the public health resources available in the area, about the health status of employees, about availability of consumables that may be required, about the changes that may be required to be made in the infrastructure and policies and procedures, about the fake advisories circulated on the social media. So you have to keep yourself abreast of all these things. How do you do that? Well, let me compliment AEOHD Delhi branch of IOH to have started this and probably creating an awareness amongst our community to see to it about the whole pandemic. Similarly, there is a whole amount of information available on the internet, on the social media. You have to sift the right information. You have to take the right information, discard the bad information available, and then probably see to it that your knowledge is kept up to date to be available for your requirement in your organization. So knowledge is going to be a central pillar for keeping yourself abreast of everything and taking care of your career in the future. Then I mentioned about network. What networking? I said governmental agencies I did mention, because governmental agencies are very important, and it is your duty to see to it that you create this network with the governmental agencies. You'll require to keep yourself abreast the public health agencies, not only for advising you, but also for helping you out in terms of contact tracing, or in terms of other things, or even in terms of the infrastructure required for your employees. NGOs, because NGOs are required, because they will also require your help, and NGOs will also give you a lot of platform for seeing to it that you can do a lot of work. Professional fora, which we always have a professional forum, and today is what we are doing one. Your friends in the area, the fellow industrial physicians in the area, is very important to be up to date with it. So you are on the same wavelength when you start doing this, because all the senior executives and the chairman of the companies, they have got various fora where they meet and they exchange ideas. And if you are on a different wavelength with the doctors there in that area, then probably you have missed the bus. Academia, for purpose of knowledge. Pharmaceutical manufacturers. Why? Because some amount of drugs will be required, medicines which we are talking about, whether it is HCQ, whether it is any other medicines which you want to stock up. If you cannot get it in the local market, probably you will have to use your network with the pharmaceutical manufacturers. As and when these medicines become available, you'll have to see to it that medicines are available for your people. Intensive care and daycare beds. How do you do that? You'll have to have a network. You'll have to have, so when you require a bed, and that time, if the bed is not available, how would you go on doing it? So you will have to create that awareness. You'll have to have the knowledge where beds are available, who's responsible. You have to have a sort of an arrangement with them. How would you do that? Today, I heard one case of one of the doctors, somebody on the social media just now said that the doctor in Mumbai died. It took him 5 hours to get a bed in Bombay. 5 hours to get a critical care in bed in Bombay, and then once he was in the hospital, he died. So the whole issue is how do we see to it that there is prompt availability of resources for our employees, for our company, and that is where your network is going to help. So your infrastructure at the occupational health center or medical center. Now, you can probably establish, or you have already established helplines for your employees where they can contact you, where you can give information, where you can do whatever. Then implementation of social distancing norms in your medical center. Because in the medical center also earlier, we used to have many people coming and sitting around without. Today, you will have to ensure that there is social distancing. Whether you will be able to, whether you have enough of PPEs and masks. Then again, creating an isolation area. If somebody becomes sick in your organization and he comes with fever, how would you isolate him? Where will be the isolation area? Do you have enough manpower? Whether you should be able to recruit more manpower. Is there manpower available today? So there is a huge problem of getting manpower. Whether it is nurses, whether it is doctors, whether it is paramedics, whether it is technicians. So provision of required medicines. Regular sanitization at the medical center. This has to be set up. You have to provide wash basins, sanitizers, have regular arrangements for biomedical waste. So the whole issue is you will have to look at it afresh and try to create all these things if they are not existent earlier. So we need to see to it that this infrastructure strengthening of the occupational center becomes one of your core areas to establish yourself. Of course, policy document, there will be a huge amount of policy changes required. There will be procedures for hand washing, sanitization, social distancing, procedures for medical data collection, procedures for medical surveillance for entry into the premises, policy for isolating and handling sick patients. So you need to see to it that how do you get this policy document done so that we can establish a process for doing all this. Fitness to return to work documents. Well, this is going to be very important because somebody who's come from a red zone, somebody who's already a case of corona positive, and then he's now become all right and he's coming back to work. What are the policies for that? Then reporting data to the government and health authorities is going to be one of the important criteria which you will have to establish policy documents for. How will you decide policy for testing for corona? And lastly, record keeping. These are the issues, these are the areas where you will have to be very prompt and have to be very, very meticulous in seeing to that these policy documents are prepared by you and so that you can take care of all these things. Written and verbal communication should be clear, concise, unambiguous, should give answers rather than posing questions. So the whole issue is how do you communicate? Now I can tell you one important example which happened recently with me. Was one very, very senior ex-director of a large industrial bank or industrial development bank. He is now more than 80. His daughter is come to India from Canada just before the lockdown happened, and she got stuck over here with him. His wife is in Lucknow and she's got stuck over there. Now this daughter has been diagnosed with breast cancer and she wants to get operated for it quickly. So she wanted to get admitted to a large hospital in Mumbai. So she asked for help. I said, okay, we'll help you out to get it done and we'll organize it. Now she had a very peculiar demand. This lady is a dentist, she's a doctor. And this lady told me that I have one request, doctor, which you should do. I said, what happened? He said, once the surgery is over and once I'm ready for discharge, after that they should keep me for 2 more weeks in the hospital. Now please ensure that that is. I said, what happened? Why? He said, my father is 80-year-old. I am the only person available in the house. There is no house help. My society doesn't allow outsiders to come in. If I am getting operated, I will not be able to work in the house. Where will I go? So keep me in the hospital for another 15 days after I am ready for discharge. Now, how do you handle this? Now, this person is known to a very senior person in my organization. Now, I needed to communicate with her differently, and I told her, okay, look, this is not good for you in times of COVID pandemic. By staying in the hospital, you are exposing yourself more towards COVID. So either we have to organize some help at home, and I told her, better still, you do one thing, near the hospital, we will book 2 hotel rooms in the hotel over there, so that your father stays in one room and you stay in another room. So your housekeeping is taken care of, your food is taken care of, your laundry is taken care of, and only you have to pay every day some amount of. Anyway, the hotels are not doing so well, so you will get rooms cheap. And she was thrilled. She said, I did never thought about all this, doctor. I agree with you that I am exposing myself not only to this, but the hospital infections. So this is very good for me. So please, thanks for helping me out. And we all did all that arrangements. She went away happy. My senior functionary got very happy. So it all depends on how you think on your feet and how you explain to them and how to sort of communicate with them. So this is very important that we learn that communication is one skill which is very, very important for us to excel in our work. So training material. Now, all of you probably have done this. I don't have to tell you all these things. We have to keep on continuously training our manpower towards doing various things, including, I have listed a few things, but including all these things, we have to do various things for training the employees. Now, isolation facilities in the establishment. So once I said, I had mentioned this earlier about isolation facilities. It has to be air-conditioned isolation room. There has to be a negative pressure in that room. There has to be a separate exit. There have to be proper PPEs. There should be procedures for examination, biological waste collection and disposal, and maintenance of the ambulance. So you have to establish this, and you need to probably stress yourself with your management to get this done in the interest of everybody in the organization. If you can do this and you can convince the management, I'm sure you'll score your brownie points with the management, and probably you'll excel in your career. Now, decision making. Decision making is very important. People look towards you because you are in charge of the occupational department. You are supposed to be an expert. You are a doctor. So people look towards you for decisions. When you arrive at a decision, you review the data, analyze the findings, arrive at options, choose the best option in the interest of the organization. Dilly-dallying will not help. Abdicating the decision making will make you redundant. I'll give you an example. Somebody who recently called me from, he's an HR guy in a different company now. He was working with me earlier. He was a very dear friend of mine. He called me and said, Doc, I have a problem in this Corona time. Can you advise me on this thing? I said, sure, why not? So I give you a broad example, but I know your doctor very well. I will call him up and tell him what is to be done. So the Chodo na doctor, he will come to me again for decisions. Because when somebody came from a red zone to start working in the factory, he calls me and tells me, this fellow has come. What do I do now? Where do I do? Should I put him in quarantine or not? He's a doctor or am I a doctor? He asked me. So he says, you tell me what should be done. This is called pooch ke management according to me. You ask or you look at what your boss wants to listen from you, and then you start doing it. Until and unless you make that decisive thing. Please remember, you are the expert. If you say quarantine, nobody will take a chance without quarantining him. So the whole issue is how you can become very, very, decisive and seeing to it that this particular quality should not be abdicated to somebody else. We cannot be looking at somebody else to make our decisions. People will either not do anything, or people will say, okay, these are the options, you decide. We have to decide ourselves, and this is very, very important that we need to take care of in our interest. So up till now, what have been the roles which we do? We look at occupational health, we look at medicine, surgery, dermatology, pulmonology, ENT, ophthalmology, so on and so forth, including the other things like administration, procurement, stores, IT, safety, operations, whatever we decide to get into. So the role of the occupational physician has been multifaceted, and he's many people rolled into one. Though he may not be an expert at everything, but he is many people rolled into one. So this is what the occupational health physician has been doing until now. So what the occupational health physician can do? He can perish by maintaining a status quo, not do anything, just आज का काम खत्म करो, चलो रोज का काम हो गया, चलो जाओ घर चले जाओ. You can perish. You can survive by being reactive to the problem once it arrives. Just wait for it. If they arrive, we will discuss, we'll return, we'll talk to somebody, we'll get it done. You might survive. But you can excel by proactively anticipating and being prepared for solving the problem. You have to be 5 steps ahead and say, as I said, networking is important. So you might be stocking medicines, you might be arranging hospital and ICU beds, you might be arranging for testing, so on and so forth. There might be many more things which you can do, much in anticipation of what is going to happen in future. At Reliance, we have made some buffer beds available for people, for ourselves at our sites, which we have created into Corona isolated one building, which we have done. We have done that, and we have ensured that we can make arrangements for some beds available in some major hospitals. Though we have got our own hospital, but still at other places, the hospital is in Mumbai, but other places like Jamnagar and all that, we have put in our efforts to ensure that we have got some buffer beds available for our employees. That is for thanks to Rajesh and team. They have done all the legwork for doing that. So actions of the occupational health physicians have to be proactive and not reactive. Let us be very clear on that. And always remember, authority is never given. You have to take your authority. You cannot be expecting somebody will come and say, this is your authority, doctor, you take it. You have to decide, and once you start deciding in your area, people will come to you for decisions. Authority will be given to you automatically. Authority is never, given to you. You have to take that authority. You have to establish yourself, and you have to say, this is how I will handle this particular situation. This is my area of work. This is how I'm going to do this. And until and unless you do that, there is no way you're going to excel. So, you are a doctor. Yes, many people say, basically I'm a doctor, but you're also a manager, right? And you also become a doctor and a manager, but your aim should be, you should be a member of the top management group. So as far as medical is concerned, the whole management team has to depend on you for anything which is related to medicine, anything which is related to occupational health, anything which is. So your ultimate objective has to be that you have to be in that management team, and do not think in the perspective of I and they. You have to become a we. I am a manager. I am a managing team. And we always say, if they do this, my management does that. They don't allow me to do that. That is not the way you should do. You should try to become a part of that management team, so you become an advisor to that management team. So in these times, huge amounts of innovations have been done in the country. This country was not manufacturing even one PPE kit. Today, we are manufacturing about 4 lakh PPE kits per day. So in the country, there is a huge amount of talent available, huge amount of available. The shields which have come. There are shields which have come for intubation. There are shields which have come for taking samples. So you need to understand that there is a huge amount of potential available with us. One interesting thing which I saw on the net was a social distancing bike, which was done by some non-engineering fellow. Of course, this is not going to be so popular, such a huge out taking so much seat, but just as an interest, I am telling you this. So what do? We have to also innovate to see to it that we will be staying relevant in our field. So what innovations will be required in the future? As you know, the virus spreads by touching doorknobs, handles. Whether we can have something like antimicrobial coatings on the doorknobs and handles, whether we can do some homework and see whether such thing is available, whether doors can be opened by voice prompts. You just say open the door and the door opens. Whether iris scans can open the doors, and probably security will be taken care with that. What are the medical requirements for ACs? Do you require HEPA filters in the medical center? How would you prepare to see to it that this is filtered? Are there any changes required in the plumbing and drainage requirements of the occupational health center or hospitals? We have to keep ourselves abreast of. Will we require Alexa to operate lights and electrical equipment? I don't know, but probably these are all in the making, and probably we should be able to see to it that we keep abreast with all these things. One more issue which I would like to really look at is when there are clusters of industries, can we make, as a part of mutual aid, a center available where we can look at isolation facilities and keep it available for any such future pandemics? So all the industries contribute, and probably you have an isolation center, keep it ready, which is ready with beds available, with ventilators available, with monitors available, with everything available. So everybody doesn't have to spend for himself, but the whole cluster would probably depend on it, and would probably have some such sort of an idea has to be implemented, and you can be the leader in the mutual aid program to start doing this in your cluster of industries. This is just a thought. There may be many more thoughts, and everybody, all of you, could have look at various thoughts and see what innovations you can do. So, what will the additional knowledge you require? You'll require little bits of knowledge now. With the other things I mentioned earlier, you'll know how to design. You'll require knowledge of architecture. You'll require mechanical, electrical, plumbing, HVAC, and whatnot. So until and unless you keep abreast of all these things, you will not be able to excel. So what I'm asking you from everybody is, you will need to be a all-rounder. You need to be an all-rounder to survive and to excel in your position as an occupational health physician. So please understand, don't think it is just, I am a doctor, I am going to do medicine, I am going to do this. It is not going to help you. You want to excel, you have to become an all-rounder. And that all-rounder is going to be the successful candidate of tomorrow. So you have to have perfect practices to make a person perfect. You have to give 100% every time. You can't be short of 100%. Success is always in the context of the present time, space, and scale. You can't be living in your past all the time. You should be out of your comfort zone. The greatest enemy of your potential is your comfort zone. So please understand, for you to literally succeed, you have to be always having adrenaline injected in you all the time and keep on thinking what I can do next. Continuous improvement is a must for growth. Effective people are not problem-minded, they are opportunity-minded. So don't think everything as a problem, think everything as an opportunity. The Prime Minister always says this. He's also looking at opportunity from getting industries from China to India. So great person combines ability with attitude and passion. So your attitude, your passion is going to be important for you to succeed. Without this, you will not in your life. The person who's always smiling does not mean that he does not have any problems. But a smile shows that he has the ability to overcome all the problems. So keep smiling and have a lovely day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for giving us all the practical tips to be a excellent occupational physician in our respective industries. How to cope up and survive and reach the excel in our respective industries. Lot of questions will be there from our participants. As occupational health physician, we need to address many areas that can impact a worker's health. And now, sir, one question from my side will be, like, when we are now easing out the restrictions of the lockdown, that resumption to work, that plays an important role. As occupational health physicians, what are the precautions and needs which we have to take care in this resumption to work? Like the fitness, you have already said, fit to work. We have to give the fitness to the work. We have to take all the public health measures and the social distancing measures. Like as a doctor, as a manager, as a occupational health expert, what all things we need to additionally see while resumption at work? Yeah.
So for that, you will, Sandeep, you will require to get a detailed history which you normally would take about, his travel history, what happened, what were his symptoms in the last few days, whether he has tested positive, whether he has recovered from it. So all those history you have to take, and probably once you are clear that which zone is he coming from, whether he's coming from a red zone, whether he's coming from a orange zone or a green zone, whether he's so all those things you will have to taking into consideration. You have to decide whether you have to put him in quarantine. Are you going to see whether these people who are coming from active zones, and if they're going to work in your factory there, so whether you want to create a gated community, or will you allow him to go home every day in the red zone? So all those things you'll have to take into consideration before you come to a decision and saying, this is what I'm saying. So if you're saying, okay, people who are living in my colony are in a green zone, so there's no problem for them, I'll take an everyday history and get them in. But a person who comes from, say Mumbai, who comes to my factory in Patalganga, there, are you going to allow him to go back to Mumbai every day? Is a question. Is he going to travel by whenever the public transport start, whether public transport will be there or whether you will be providing him transport, whether what he will do. So all these factors will have to be taken into consideration before you really decide on a particular person. So it will have to be an individual task, or we'll have to make groups as to say, okay, this is how it will work. So that is where the fitness issues will come into play. So whether suppose somebody is already tested COVID positive and he is now discharged, how many days will you wait before you take him back to work? Whether it is 2 weeks, 4 weeks, public health experts' opinion, I was talking about networking, you can decide how you want to do it, and then take a call as to whether you want to take him back to work or not. So it's going to be a dynamic situation. It's not going to be a fixed saying, this is how I'm going to do, this person is coming in, so this is what I'm going to do. It will not be a dynamic situation. It will be a dynamic situation. It will not be a fixed area how to take it further.
Yeah. So same situation arises like after 2 months of lockdown, people were stuck up in their different places. They have gone for some social function or something else, and they were stuck up in some other cities. Now their family members, they are coming back, and they are now they are staying with the employees. Now, how to take care of all this situation? How to allow them? Should we get all of them tested, or put them in some home quarantine? Even if their family they are in contact with their family members who have come from different states or some other zones. Yeah.
See, basically, until and unless, according to the guidelines as of now, until and unless, if somebody is coming from outside, which is from a, say, containment area or a red zone and all that, probably you have to put them into quarantine for a couple of weeks, 2 weeks or so, and then take them in. But if they're coming from outside where you don't feel that there is anything like that, then probably you have to wait to see whether any symptoms develop and take care of that. Whether it can be a home quarantine for them, or whether directly taking them to work will not be a good idea if they have traveled. Similarly, if they develop symptoms, then near and dear ones to their next of kin will have to be monitored, and if required, tested for them if they develop positivity. So as I said, it is going to be a person-oriented approach rather than it's going to be a fixed approach for this. So you'll have to look at it individually whenever such things happen. So it's not going to be very, very easy for the occupational physician to have one code fits all.
Dr. Shanbhag, I
Yeah.
got a question.
Yeah,
I
sure.
got a question. First of all, I compliment you for giving a very good presentation on the subject. And it was really, we could get a lot of information out of it. My question is, now as the lockdown is being opened up, there is more and more movement of people in the hospitals, in the offices, in the other public places, everywhere. And in our systems, whether in government or in private sector, the top brass are always in the higher age groups. They are all plus 50, 55 or so. In medical, even plus 60 people are working in the hospitals. And this is the category of people those are at the maximum risk. So the problem is, your staff, we can send on, we can work with 1/3 or half the people. But the top management, you cannot. So practically what is happening is the elderly people are coming daily to the institutions or offices, while the younger are coming alternate day or twice a week as per the schedule. How to overcome this problem?
Well, there are no answers to your question. First of all, is people about 60, 65, whatever you are saying, is you have to try to see to it that they don't come to work.
That is very, very strong.
You have to try.
Links to your website.
Hello,
to a
Dr.
blog,
Sandberg.
slideshare. You can even ask
Please let him answer. Let him answer my question.
Gajendra Kumar answer question first.
you how it works.
And I have this mic, somebody's mic which is on.
Dr. Sikdar, please can you switch off your mic?
He's already
Dr.
switched.
Dr. Sikdar.
So the whole issue is, yeah, how do you do that? There is no answers for that. See, ultimately, if you are going to, if it's so critically important, and the person answers the call of duty, I'll give you one example. Is suppose tomorrow a company's chairman has to undergo a surgery, and you are 65 years of age, and you want to go, you want to give him comfort level, so you want to attend the surgery. How will you handle? So this is a special circumstance. You will have to go. You can't say, no, I am 65, I will not come. There's a call of duty which you have to attend. But whether the person who is another person who is an advisor in his, say, maintenance department, he need not go for these sort of things. But the point is, it will all be specifically. But you can't say it's a general thing. All 65 and above should come to work every day. No. You have to say that there is a rule which is 65 and above will not come. Now, for exceptions, you will have to create some amount of. So all precautions will need to be taken. Probably you will tell him to wear whatever protective equipment which he has to wear, whether he wants to wear a goggle, whether he will give him a face shield, whether you will give him whatever. Or all those things you will have to decide. That will be per individual again. But you cannot say all rules, everybody is more than 65 will come and everybody below 30 will not come. Is not right. So we'll have to enforce that rule unless for exceptions. Exceptions we'll have to create various safety measures which we'll have to take for them.
Quite right.
Sir, there is one, what is your take on planning and learning for the future, like developing teleworking policy and the procedures, sir? Because many of us, we have to work from home, and additionally, this teleconsultation also, I want your opinion about this.
Yeah, you see, as far as doctors are concerned, teleconsultations for in the short term is going to work because there is no option. Patient also don't want to come there, and you like to, for crisis, you'll have to create a teleconsultation. But as a doctor, without examining a patient, is not. So ultimately, this will have to change. You might have to wear your personal protective equipment for some time, but it will have to change. Secondly, we have to understand one thing, that these diseases will come. Today, we do not have a vaccine or treatment for it. As soon as these things come, everything will revert back to normal because then you will have answers for it. Like a few years ago, H1N1 came and there was a big crisis. Not as big as what happened just now, but there was a crisis at that particular point in time. We did not stop going to work, but then there was a crisis. But today, if H1N1, you are tested H1N1 positive, you got treatment available. It doesn't become the heavens don't fall down on you. So similarly, till some vaccine or some treatment comes about, this is going to last. Until that time, working from home is all right. But people like us who are medical professionals who have to come close to the patient, what will happen to the dentist? He'll have to give up his daily earnings if he ENT surgeon. How will you work otherwise? So the whole issue is that this is in the short term, this is going to work. But for occupations which can work on working, like say banking or like say IT, like whatever. So those people probably, I think the world will change. And the world will say, okay, you work from home and we will ensure how you work from home and we will pay you how you work from home. Probably you will be in India and working for a company in the US for those people. But that doesn't happen with the doctors. Doctors, one of the main reasons is the touch of the doctor, the talking of the doctor, the counseling of the doctor is going to be important. And it's for a short time, this is fine. But in the long term, I don't think there will be certain occupations which will be able to work remotely.
Thank you. Now, there are certain questions on the chat group, sir. First question is, how we will deal with the asymptomatic patients or the COVID negative suspected carriers of the employees in the organization. This is from Dr. D.S. Rawat from ONGC.
Say that again. How will we?
How you will manage asymptomatic COVID negative suspect carriers employees in the organization?
How do you say suspect carriers? Once you say suspect, there is something. Okay, so asymptomatic will be treated like anybody else unless he gets symptoms or he gets tested. You will not be able to come to know. If you, as soon as you say suspect, I feel that you are suspecting him. Otherwise, you suspect everybody. Everybody who is asymptomatic, you will have to be suspecting. So the whole issue is that as soon as you start suspecting that there is something, either there is some contact or either there is some travel, either he has got some symptoms, or then you start testing him or whatever you do. Now, other asymptomatic carriers, you will not be able to do that unless he undergoes a routine test. That routine test will happen for various things. May happen for various things because in the containment zone, everybody's got tested. So some asymptomatic carriers came about. Or you say somebody who went to the hospital. Now, hospital has got a policy to test everybody for COVID before allowing him inside. So what will you do? So there might be some asymptomatic people who will come out as positive. So those people, so as soon as you get these people will come out in routine testing. Like suppose some pregnant ladies who go for delivery or they go for an antenatal checkup, if they are tested as a routine and the routine testing goes up and you get people who are asymptomatic but positive, then you will be able to get them. Otherwise, they will be like any other normal people till such time they either show symptoms or their near and dear ones show symptoms because of they have transferred that.
We should have some contact history or...
Absolutely, absolutely. That has to be there.
There is one question from Dr. Pavan Kumar. He says that most of the developed countries work on the issue of immune passport to the person who has recovered from COVID-19. Is immunity developed to the whole life against COVID-19?
There is no data available on that. There is no guarantee that once he is got COVID-19 positive, he will not get it again. So again, as you know, these viral strains keep on changing. So next year, a little bit different strain will come up. And I don't think as of now data is available to show you that you get lifelong immunity for like chickenpox or something like that. That you get lifelong immunity, that you will not get it once you are already COVID-19 positive. There is no data yet available, not to my knowledge at least.
Okay. Then another question from Dr. Guru Prasad. The most important job of occupational physician is interpreting the government order and implement that in the organization. What's your advice on that?
According to me, there is no choice but to implement government orders. In these times, they have got special powers. If you do not implement, then probably they will take action against you. So the whole issue is in the best way, as I said, you will have to have some amount of networking with the government people to understand what they want to do. And secondly, if they have given you an order, how best to follow it, to see to it that your company's interests are protected and not compromised because of the government order not being followed.
Okay. So there's one question from Dr. Ganesh if any employee wants to leave to visit his hometown after lockdown, on what terms permission be granted? I think this was taken by you earlier.
No, you see, basically, if somebody wants to go, it's a choice which he does. He might have some pressing reasons for going. There could be some very hard pressing reasons. There might be some death in the family. Because of that, he wants to go. Because of some reason, he wants to go. So if he wants to go, he will go. But again, when he comes back, you will have to have your monitoring systems in place to see to it that your employees within the factory are not compromised.
Now there's one question from Dr. Govind Ake from Pune. He asks, will be the demand of occupational professionals in all workplaces will be high, or it will be a business as usual?
Now, over a period of time, it will be business as usual. But now, what has happened is organizations, whether it is big organizations, always knew the importance of doctors and occupational physicians. But the small scale, medium scale, and all that will also start looking at some amount of support in terms of these sort of things. So, as I said in my presentation, this has brought the occupational health department and the medical department into the limelight. Now, how we exploit it is in our hands. How we do that with our sort of responses, with our sort of behavior, with our sort of implementation of policies. How we do it is going to be in our hands, and see to it that this is the best way we can take forward the discipline of occupational health.
Okay. Now the question from Dr. Kishore Parikh, I think it has already been addressed by you, sir. If there is any history of interstate travel, then what are the guidelines to allow employees to join duty in industry?
Yeah, I mentioned this when earlier, that when he comes back to the industry, as I said, you will have to have some sort of systems to take his history and then decide whether you want to put him into home quarantine, or whether you want to ask him to come a little later, whether you want to put him in the hospital, or whether you want to take him back to work, because everything is fine with him. But you will have to have certain things in place when you allow people to come inside every day, like checking temperatures at the gate, even checking temperatures before getting into the company bus, and taking a medical history when he gets into it. This has to be done every day, because whether the status has changed from yesterday to today, we do not know. But as I again said, this will go on till the time we are uncertain and we don't have answers to the COVID-19 infection.
Right. So, sir, many people, they have thanked you and congratulated you for giving this practical tips. Dr. S.P. Chaudhary, Dr. Banu Hajarika, Dr. Sriniket Mishra, they have all complimented you, Dr. and Mr. Rakesh Saxena, Dr. Rakesh Saxena. So I would request, so they have complimented you for the lively presentation. And I would request now, if anyone wants to have 1:1 question from Dr. Shanbag, they can raise their hands. Host can unmute one by one. Yeah, Dr. Nitika Chauhan. Dr. Rajgopal, you wanted to ask something?
He's on mute.
He has to unmute himself.
You're on mute, huh?
Okay, yeah, now I've got it. Yeah. No, just to compliment Dr. Shanbag, as usual, he's the epitome of someone who is extremely practical and also, able to understand what is needed as the need of the hour in terms of supporting organizations. So, Shanbag, I join others in complimenting you, and
thank you, Sirji.
There's always a lot to learn when you take these sort of sessions. Just one thing I wanted to add, Sandeep, and this is in response to an earlier question on immunity passport. Yeah. And I am a very, very vocal opponent of an immunity passport, if I can say that. And Shanbag has covered the right reasons, but what has happened is that the WHO has now come out with a position paper on immunity passport. And what they say is that it is impossible to judge from the antibodies whether you have adequate protection, and if so, for how long it will last. People are not even sure whether it will last for a few months. What has happened is that there have been hundreds of fly-by-night operators who are using these kits to test people. And you get a range of sensitivity and specificity. Recently, 2 kits have been approved for being highly specific and highly sensitive. One is the Abbott and the other is the Roche kit. The Roche kit has 100% specificity, but 99.5% sensitivity. So in a population where if you do a serological test, if only 10% of the people are positive, even then the reliability comes down significantly. So we are facing a lot of issues in terms of reliability. And therefore what the CDC has now said is that if you have to look at the antibody test, you need to have 2 separate antibody tests done in 2 separate sort of offerings, whether it is Abbott or Roche, 2 like that. And then it will only tell you that you have been exposed to it. But imagine an organization's dilemma. If you tell him that you are positive, you are having an IgG antibody, and if it is a false positive, there's a legal liability. Because if he catches the disease, you are in serious trouble. So I would advise all the medical officers here, this is the time when Shanbag said non-medical people, non-medical executives, they want to show that they know something. They will tell you, Doctor, ab ye kyun nahi kar dete? Do it for all our people. That's the only way we'll come back to work. Now that's crazy. So you have to put your foot down and tell them it's crazy. I also heard now Goa government is telling that, do the antibody test before you start flying. Somebody should tell the Goa government that this is highly unethical. And I'll tell you why. You allow people to come in if they are antibody positive. That means they have been through an infection. So all of us who are staying in home and protecting ourselves, we have never had a chance to get infected. So now you are telling people unless you go out and get infected and then show the antibody, we will either not allow you to come to work or to travel. So these are the ethical dilemmas which, as occupational health professionals, we must actually guide our management, and also state governments. If some of us are on the panels of state governments, we must tell them, let's not be silly in terms of looking at this. It is only useful from a population perspective of finding out if at all there is some semblance of a herd immunity developing. And I have gone vocal telling everybody that you cannot develop herd immunity to this condition because its reproductive factor is 3. For those of you who don't know how to calculate herd immunity, it's RO minus 1 divided by RO. So if your RO is 3, 3 minus 1 divided by 3, you need 2/3 of your population to get infected. And in a country like India, if you ask 2/3 to get infected, you will kill millions of people. So that's what I wanted to say as an overall sort of a summary of immunity and all this stuff.
Excellent, Raj. Thanks. I have also learned something from you today.
Dr. Rajiv Jain, would you like to say something? Yeah.
I must compliment Dr. Shanbhag, long-awaited, innovative idea that you have thrown. Number of ideas came forward. One issue which has been, in my mind throughout this pandemic has been Indian policy, which is, against migrant workers de facto. Most of the corporate houses have risen due to increased use of migrant contractual workers. Now, this is a pandemic in the making. Now, because in the railways, we know how many people have gone back to UP and Bihar. 80% of trains which have gone for migrant labor has gone to UP and Bihar. And that most of them are not going to come back with the experience they've had in migrating from. And number one state was not Maharashtra, it was Gujarat, which is the highest migration. Would you agree that as an occupational health physician, one should advocate in-house housing and welfare measures? One of the outstanding corporate houses in India has been Tata's. Historically, they have ensured that housing is provided as part of the employment package as a retention strategy. So this, what do you feel this would be going forward, would be an important strategy for industries to invest in housing and social welfare measures like education, housing and other measures, so that people do not have to go back when they do not have the jobs during these times?
Oh, Rajiv, well said. See, this is good. This has become a very painful experience to everybody, seeing these migrant workers back home. But my feeling is, let us look at it a little dispassionately and say, in the first place, why did the migrant labor come to these places? Because they didn't have anything in their own homes, in their own villages, and they started coming here to looking for work and seeing to it that they get some money so that they can spend. I do not think, my personal view, I do not think they went back because they did not get, they don't have a place to stay. They were staying anyway without a government or industry provided housing. Somewhere they would stay. So it's not that they didn't have space. It's not that they would not get food, because there are a lot of NGOs who are giving food and all those things. But I think it was mainly in times of crisis, I would like to be with my near and dear ones. That is the feeling which has taken them home. That is the feeling which make them say कि कुछ हो रहा है तो मुझे मेरे घर वालों के साथ होने दो. So that is the feeling with them. Again, as I said, this is not going to last for a lifetime. 6 months, 8 months, we'll get an answer. Again, these people, slowly, it might take some few years to come back. Not that they will never come back, they will come back. But having said that, I agree with you that we need to see to it that they get some housing where they can get their near and dear ones, maybe their wives, children here also. Because there are a lot of migrant labor who come here alone and their wives and children are there in their native places. So it's a good idea. And if I am not wrong, there are incentives in the recent stimulus package for industries to provide housing to the migrant labor and to their own labor at a cheaper housing which they can do. And there are huge incentives which the recent finance minister announced. I think the government has taken its step. I think it will all fall into place. The industry would have learned its lessons because of what has happened now. And I'm sure some good will come out of this in the long run. And I'm sure maybe, maybe it might take a few months to a few years for everything to fall into place. But this will all come back. We would have learned our lessons and see to it that once we have burnt our lips with milk, you will see to it that the buttermilk is very, very cold before we drink it. So let us see. We'll have to wait and watch.
Yeah.
I think it's time
Thank you.
that this will have to work.
Yeah, Dr. Mrugya, you want to say something? You have to unmute yourself, Dr. Mrugya.
Okay. Yeah. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
My question to you is now we are going to start, like we have already started the factories, but what about the new recruitments? We normally have like 100 people coming from interstates, like all new places who are all crammed up in one place where we do the medical for all of them. So apart from the N95 mask, what are the measures that we should be taking to protect ourselves when a huge crowd from all other new states are coming? Could you guide us on that?
First of all, you should advise your company that the number of employees to be recruited has to be reduced. You will need to see to it that you keep, even if you want to recruit only those many people whom you want immediately to be recruited. Number 3, follow the social distancing. See to it that they all are not crammed up in one place. Number 4, again, as you said, use your masks and all those things. Sanitization, all those things will have to be put into place before you start. It is not business as usual as of now. You'll have to wait for that to happen, and you will have to scale it up in such a way that there is no contra effect on your company, on you, or on your anybody else who are your employees as of now. So please see to it that you put in place and put your foot down to say to it that I will not, if you just want me to take 100 people, these are the things which you have to put in place before I start doing everything else. As I said, today in these times, you are the expert, you put your foot down.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Now, Dr. A.K. Kokar wants to ask one question, sir.
Yeah, sure.
Dr. Kokar is senior member from Delhi, sir.
Yeah, sure.
Dr. Kokar, you have to unmute yourself, sir.
I think you're on mute. Yeah.
Yes, please. Let me first comment. It was a beautiful presentation. As you know, the COVID-19 has brought about the psychological issues within the people. I think especially the organization like yours, I think they should strengthen the mental health services. There is a high need now at the moment to realize that counseling and mental health services are the ones which are the need of the hour, especially in the organized sector. When we are talking of migratory labor and all, it is very difficult to control them. But within the organized sector, I think there is much scope to ensure that there are organized sector and there are 2-3 layers. Not only that, like you can provide what are the instructions which are being given at the first level. You can give that who are the people if you develop any type of problem, because most of the people have problems, whether it may be economic or it may be social or psychological. So that is only one of my comments that this is required.
Yeah, Dr. Kokar, thank you very much. We as an organization do have a mental health program. Talking in general. Number 2, I did not take up any mental health issues because last Saturday, Dr. Shiva Ramakrishnan gave a presentation on mental health in the times of COVID. And he has covered a lot of issues which you just mentioned. And he covered mental health in detail as to what the occupational health physicians do. Hence, I did not touch upon it because it was just taken, the webinar was on last Saturday in the evening.
That's
so,
fine.
Yeah, so I'm sure, Sandeep has recorded. If it is recorded, probably you can go through the presentation which Shiva Ramakrishnan has done it, or he might be able to send it to you. Shiva is there in the conference just now. Probably he can just share the mental health presentation to you.
The other issue which I would like to say is that we all our doctors, especially on the senior level, as you were talking, that taking responsibility, having knowledge in management, and that also is very essential at this time. Yeah. We must now learn that all those who are occupying important positions should get some of the exposure to the managerial management issues. Because you in public sector, especially are far better. But when we think of the governmental sector, the things are worse off. So,
I know, but it is time that we see, until and unless we as a discipline take the initiative, this will not work. Nobody will come to you and give you something. It is we have to do that, and we have to take the first steps towards taking that responsibility. and then see to it that we equip ourselves with whatever resources are required to ensure that we get into the management system.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Shriniket, you wanted to say something? Shriniket Mishra?
Shriniket ji.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for a very informative session and very good presentation. I have nothing to ask. The session was very good, and as a occupational physician, we have learned a lot how to deal with our organization and senior management. So, thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Kamala Fatiyar, ma'am. She's our Vice President from Delhi branch.
Good evening, Dr. That was a wonderful presentation. You had summarized it so wonderfully that it is a nice takeaway, sir. I wanted to know something about buffer beds. How do you manage to get buffer beds in your city for our employees?
That's what I said. It requires a lot of networking, number one, because normally we are a large organization, so we have got arrangements with most of the hospitals.
Yes.
So even if the larger hospitals in Mumbai or wherever is there, even if we say we ensure that whenever our patients are sent, you'll see to it that you'll ensure that my 3 patients, 4 patients, 5 patients are taken care in your hospital. We'll be very happy. Even if required, we can give some advance money for that, or whatever we need to do, we can do that. That is number one. Number two, what we have done is that we have kept a buffer beds in our large corporate center, corporate place. We have ensured that we have created some amount of isolation facility in one of the buildings. So the whole issue is we need to, you cannot, today if I say if I can't get a bed for 2 days, it's not going to work. Thirdly, what my chairman did was, it was the first COVID hospital in the country was set up by our company for the Municipal Corporation of Mumbai. We have about 200 beds in 7 hospitals, which we are running. Of course, it is under the Bombay Municipal Corporation, but because we have started it, we can see to it that some of our patients go there. So it is not that it is just come out like that, but when we have done that, then we can get that sort of a facility. Similarly, wherever our manufacturing units are there, we have ensured, because we have got relationship with all these hospitals, and that networking cannot be done overnight. It has to be there all the time. We have to create that network for a long time. Then only this works in times of crisis.
That's true, Dr. Sahab. Sir, I had one speaking, because in Delhi also, Delhi NCR, we have very few private hospitals. Most of them are empaneled with us, but then they are under the control of the Delhi government again. As COVID positive patients, they also seem to be saying the same thing, that definitely will give you priority, but you'll be also in the wait list. So
I agree. See, what has happened is government also, even in Mumbai, it's not becoming simpler. It is becoming more and more difficult, because Mumbai, the cases are going so high that the government is putting their foot down and saying, nothing for you, everything is for me. So this will happen. So again, as I said, my networking also has to involve the government. So if I am going to help the Mumbai Municipal Corporation also will, have a soft corner for me.
Okay.
So you understand what I'm trying to say? It's not free lunch.
No, I understand perfectly. I understand, but we don't have such a hospital in our units in NHPC. I'm from NHPC, so we don't have. So I'm also trying, but okay, I'll take your.
But you can help the local government in some way or other.
Definitely, we are doing it in different states. We are doing it.
You have to do that to get things back in return. That's what I'm saying. I don't know every time you'll get it or not, but yes, you have to try your best to do that, and that networking will help.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
Dr. Kishore Parikh, he's raising his hands.
Kishore, unmute yourself.
Unmute yourself.
Sir, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
It was excellent, and as usual, you are excellent. Sir, still I am not clear, because most of the industry during lockdown or after lockdown, they are starting industry again. It was closed previously. So they are doing all this thing, that is distance then sanitization, then also they are filling the consent form also. They are declaring whether there is history of traveling or not. So society, everything they are doing. But one thing I want to make it clear, sir, from your side, say, interested, suppose somebody came from Maharashtra to my industry, as for example. So today, what should we should allow? Because 60-70% are asymptomatic most of the time. So what should be, is there any government guideline to allow him in industry? 14 days quarantine or anything?
No. See, basically, government is not giving you any guidelines about allowing in your industry, number one.
Okay.
Number two, when you start your industry,
yeah,
as an organization, your responsibility is to see to it that you have to ensure the safety of your employees, number one. And for doing that, what you need to do is first estimate.
Yeah.
Is the minimum number of people I want in my factory. Suppose I have got 100 people today. How many people are required to run this factory? Whether it is 30, 40, 50 to begin with. In the first week, you will not get 100 people all together. That is number one. So, and you already got some people, employees who are at home just now. So you get those number of people who you require to begin with. Now, once you do that, then you know how you can implement your policies about social distancing, about hand washing, about your monitoring of temperatures, how you want to do that, whether systems are in place, how your logistics work, how your canteen works. You will learn in the first 10-15 days, and then slowly you scale up. You cannot say, I will get all 100 people, then one person has come from Maharashtra, I will do that. All I'm saying, if you are in Baroda and you are getting your people who are already in Baroda, start your factory with that. Learn in the process, scale it up slowly, and that is in the interest of your organization. Not suddenly get 50 people from Maharashtra and Baroda and say, okay, I'm going to take these 50 people. I'll keep my 50 people from Baroda at home. So all you have to do is you have to do your studies. You have to decide how many numbers you want, and then slowly scale up. You cannot suddenly say tomorrow lockdown is removed. I will be business as usual. Please,
sir, please. It has been already started. We started with 33% manpower only, and it is gradually rise. It's not sudden. But somebody comes, I want to know, is there any guideline? Can we put for quarantine or not? Somebody.
No, you can. You should do it yourself. You should say if somebody is coming from a red zone, somebody is coming from a place where there are a lot of cases, I will not take him unless I quarantine him. So that is up to you, and your responsibility is toward the people who are already in your factory rather than somebody who's coming from outside.
Because, sir, for the COVID, our problem is most of them are asymptomatic. If we allow one person and is positive, then entire industry will be closed by government.
That is why I'm saying
you should. That's why it is quite difficult for us.
You should not look at government guidelines. You should have your own guidelines saying that anybody from any other area where there is a huge amount of COVID patients, I will quarantine him for 15 days before I take him. As simple as that.
But even if they are not from red zone, they are traveling. Suppose somebody from Maharashtra, during travel also they can come in contact with.
Absolutely. So don't take anybody from outside. No, first for 15 days quarantine. No problem.
That's what I want to.
Yeah.
I have implemented 14 days compulsory quarantine at this moment.
Better be safe than sorry.
I am very clear with management also. Okay, no, I won't allow at least for 14
Better
days.
Be safe than sorry.
Yeah. Okay, sir. Okay, thank you.
So, any other questions? Anyone else who wants to? Dr. Tyagraj?
Thank you, Dr. Schanberg, for a very, very nice lecture. I think you have done a more work like our Dr. Anthony Fassi of United States of America. Very, very nice lecture. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Sudha Madam.
Okay. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Thank you, Sandeep and Delhi team. You're doing fantastic work. Keep it up because we don't know when the corona is going to end. And to Dr. Schanberg, I'll only say, as usual, you have been practical, sensible, and impressive. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just going going to suggest to Delhi team is, could you look at, a lot of questions are coming from companies about pregnancy.
Yeah.
Their employees to continue, not to continue, what are the precautions to be taken? So please look at that as a topic.
Okay, right. Right, sure. Thank you for all this suggestion, ma'am. Dr. Shiva, you want to say something, sir?
First of all, Shanbag, a beautiful presentation.
Thank you, Shiva.
Yeah. Second thing is, see, when we are talking about migrant workers, the problem which is now created are daily wage workers, not the permanent migrant workers who are working in the organization. So it is the temporary daily wage workers who are having this issue. So that issue maybe immediately may not come, but it will come after some time. Back again, they will come.
They'll come back. They'll come back.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you, Sandeep, for giving us such a good presentation through Dr. Shanbag.
Yeah. So in addition to this daily wage workers, I would like to highlight this, our canteen workers, our supporting staff, our sanitary workers, they also need to be taken care of, because they may be the source of infection, because we do not know from which place they are coming and working in our offices. So we need to be extra careful about them also. Dr. Saxena, you wanted to say something? Dr. R.C. Saxena? सर अनम्यूट करना पड़ेगा आपको. So you have to unmute yourself. Okay, thank you. So any other comment or something from all the participants?
Sandeep, I have just one comment, and this is for Sudha. Sudha, you said whether pregnant people should continue. Of course, they should continue with their pregnancy.
Abhi, I am okay. My mute is on now. Tell me, what was the question?
There's a lot of discussion going on in that, because one person who was one of the employees in a company who was posted to a country outside India for 3 weeks. She's coming back and she says, I've gone through this. I don't want to carry pregnancy. So there are a lot of people who need advice.
Yeah.
The suggestion from the infectious disease and gynecologists, obstetricians are to continue. But there's a lot of psychological thoughts involved in this, because people are worried. And we have quite a bit of women population in our employees. So I thought that would also be a topic.
Yeah.
Sandeep, that time I was muted. I could not speak. Tell me, what was the question that time?
Actually, she is suggesting one topic for another webinar on how to take care of this pregnant.
Yeah. That I heard.
Yeah. And because there are a lot of issues regarding the pregnant workers, so should they continue working or should they work from home? And what are the other measures we need to take as management to help them out? Yeah. And
it will be a good topic, yes.
In fact, Dr. Sandeep, Dr. Sandeep, I want to highlight this issue because it's not a scanty issue. There are two issues in pregnancy-related issues. One is, migrant work. Within migrant workers, we have seen 24 deliveries have taken place in the Shramik special trains during the last fortnight, out of which 3 mothers have died after delivering the baby. Number one. Number two, there has been a recorded finding in a study where the pregnancy rate has increased. People who were married for 2-3 years were not conceiving, have now conceived. That's a scientific fact, where the people who were trying IVF and other procedures, they were failing earlier. Now they have succeeded suddenly. So there is a positive aspect as well. Second, the pregnancy itself, ladies who is really worried. What is going to happen? Will the baby get infection? Will I get infection? What happens? So these are the issues which again and again these ladies are asking, which I noticed today morning as well. But antenatal mothers, whatever be the risk, they are willing to come all the way and consult the obstetrician about these questions. They may look trivial, but for them it's a question of life and death.
Yeah. So we'll be taking this subject, sir, at some later date. So at the end, I would like to thank everyone, sir. And I have noted down certain points for our occupational physician from what Dr. Shanbag has deliberated, that nothing is important in our life and we have to be up to the mark in our knowledge, and people can use, we have to use our authority as a medical doctor, as an occupational physician in our respective industries, and try this COVID opportunity to boost our careers in our respective organizations, and make a positive impression on the management through our knowledge and updated informations which we gather from different sources, create a goodwill among our employees, create a network with the authorities, and build a goodwill within the community which in which you are living. Prove your administrative skills and establish leadership in the occupational health, and knowledge is the central pillar of all these happenings. Do a good networking, develop a good infrastructure in your respective organization to take care of your employees, and it's ultimately your decision which should matter in your organization as a doctor, and our action must be proactive and not reactive. And we need to be a member of the top management group to mitigate this COVID-19, and we need to be an all-rounder in order to survive and to excel, and the perfect practices are the things which makes one perfect. So sir, thank you all very much. We have been joined by different occupational physicians across the country, from Chennai to Delhi to from Gujarat to Digboy. I'm seeing Dr. Bhanu Hajarika from AOD Digboy Refinery. She is there, and we'll continue.
Dr. Sittar also joined.
Yeah, Dr.
From
Sittar,
Calcutta, Dr. Sittar was also there.
Yeah, he was there. So we'll continue with this series, sir, with all your guidance and your knowledge. We'll try to update our occupational physician. And for next Saturday, we have invited Dr. Shyam Pingle. Dr. Shyam Pingle is not showing his video. I think Dr. Pingle, sir, would you like to confirm for next Saturday, sir? And your take on today's?
Yeah, it was actually with Dr. Shanbag, it is always experience relived. We have spent so much of time together that most of the times we think alike. I mean, I have learned from him. So I know how would he react, and I try to emulate him. So it was a wonderful presentation. Rather, I did not feel like a presentation. I felt it like the usual chat which we used to have for an hour when we were traveling together and discussing the things. Yes, next Saturday we will definitely have a session. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and we'll discuss the appropriate topic, and then you can announce it subsequently.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Shyam. Thanks.
So I think at Delhi, we are making this COVID as an opportunity to meet so frequently and getting the opportunity to learn so many things from the learned speakers. Thank you all very much. And it is a really nice meeting.
Thanks, Dr. Gajendra, and thanks, Sandeep.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody. So this is a new way of life for every one of us. We should keep in touch, keep learning from all you all seniors, sir. From the knowledge you are having with your great experience. From Dr. Rajgopal, we have learned so many things. Dr. Shiva, Dr. Rajiv Jain, and now so many people are there in the pipeline. Dr. Sudha also, we would like you, madam, to share something maybe on the women health or pregnancy related. I'll talk to you later on, ma'am. Yeah. So thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Bye bye.
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 Bye, everybody.
Everybody must leave the program.
Yeah. Not without saying goodbye to Dr. Jain. Dr. Jain, I haven't said hello to you. Take care.
Dr.
Bye.
Rav's favorite.
Of course. Yeah. I get all my references from him.
Oh, so nice. That's why he's remembered every time.
Yeah, always. He's the fountainhead of knowledge. Yeah. See you all. Bye.
Thank you. Take care, sir. Be safe.
Okay.